Welcome back to another episode of the Advisor Summit podcast, where industry innovators and thought leaders come together to elevate the way we serve, scale, and succeed. Today's guest is someone whose name carries serious weight in the world of advisor development, Christina Gilbert. As an advisor development coach, Christina has made it her mission to help financial business owners break through barriers, align their teams, and build firms that are both high-performing and future-focused. With experience as a financial advisor herself, Christina brings unmatched empathy and insight to her coaching. Her work with advisors spans digital strategy, marketing, and practice management, all backed by frameworks from Strategic Coach, EOS, StrengthsFinders, and DISC. She's also a self-proclaimed technology junkie who knows how to turn systems into serious growth engines, streamlining planning, boosting accountability, and transforming how advisory teams operate from the inside out. Christina's leadership is powerful, practical, and deeply respected across the industry, and today we're lucky to have her here. Hi, Christina. Thanks so much for coming on the Advisor Summit. We're so excited to learn from you and just kind of hear about what you do and how you help advisors.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Molly.
Yeah, let's get started. So you wear a lot of hats, not only mom and wife, of course, but also you're a coach, you're an implementer, an educator. Kind of talk to me a bit about the journey of getting into kind of this niche market where all of those things kind of align together.
Yeah, my resume is definitely not a straight path. So my background is actually, I have a master's degree in early childhood education, which serves me really well as a parent. I won't lie to you, but beyond that, I taught kindergarten for a couple of years. And then I realized very quickly that if I continued to teach preschool and kindergarten, I probably wouldn't want to have my own kids.
Kids,
backed out of that. And then my family, I come from a family of helpers, right? We want to be people who are helping the society around them. And so, my natural pivot from there was to go into nonprofit. And I've actually been the executive director of a nonprofit here in town. I've worked on several boards, but I realized that working in nonprofit, there's some financial implications there that come around. And I found that once I entered finance, I was able to better support those organizations financially than I could have ever dreamed working, as an implementer in the business.
It's still helping. It's just a different role. I feel like that's encouraging to anyone. It's not necessarily always hands-on if you don't have time, space, or energy to help people, but there's a way to help regardless. So there's no excuses.
So, I kind of pivoted from there, and I was actually picked up by a financial firm who said, hey, you like helping people, you like serving families, be a financial advisor in the industry. And so that's how I kind of got into finance. And it was an interesting several years. I was not a bad producer. I was actually pretty good at it. But when you work, so I worked with Northwestern Mutual, which is a fantastic company in the industry, and they have wonderful training. So they have some of the best training in the industry. And what I found was that as a financial advisor in that kind of a system, I felt really isolated because it was me against the world. You know what I mean? And some people really thrive in that environment, and I just did not. But as a result, I was in a leadership program here in my community, and I met, a friend of a friend who kind of pivoted me into this sort of FMO world. And that's kind of where I landed and how I got here.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's really cool too to see, like, you probably took pieces of, teaching and in the nonprofit to bring into this. So I always just want to encourage people to, I don't think any path is linear. I think it's almost just as important to learn what you don't like. And then that in turn will help you find what you do like. So that is huge.
And I think in finance, it's this really unique opportunity. Everything is so equation driven, right? Where you can say, hey, I want to make this kind of money. I want to do this kind of job. I want to provide this kind of service. And all you have to do is back yourself into it with an equation and say, hey, it's possible if you do this.
Reverse engineer it.
Right. And so this industry, I think, is just it's just an amazing environment for self-creation. Almost where you can say, what do you want to be when you grow up, and talk to somebody about it, and then find an equation to make it happen. So
I think, and you can always pivot too. I feel like this industry is so big. There's literally the options are endless. So I always think too, when people complain, they're like, man, I hate my job. I'm like, find another
Well,
one.
we can
Like there's a lot of options out there. So,
and I think it's so sad when I find people who don't like their jobs, right? I don't think everybody loves their job every single day, but I sure as heck love mine. And
yes. And it's huge. And when you're passionate about something, that's when it really helps, because it's like, gosh, like I really enjoy this. And that's what's important. So you kind of describe, I mean, I think this is so fitting for you. You describe your mentality as clear as kind. And that's kind of how you do, you know, your coaching and your implementing. Can you kind of break down what that means in the financial advisory world and kind of how that impacts the teams you work with?
Yeah. So from a clear as kind, I think it goes back to the equation. Nobody knows what to do if you don't outline the expectations for them. And I think some of us, you know, are people pleasers, or we want to just be nice. And I think you can be really nice and be really clear at the same time, because your A players, they want to know what the expectations are so they can surpass them. And there's no way to know that if the target is moving on people all of the time. And so if you can figure out how to be nice and say what it is that you mean to say, and define the expectations for your organization, for your family, for your spouse, whatever it is, the world is just going to open up so much faster for you. And you'll figure out, you know, exactly where you want to be spending your time and your energy versus not.
I think too, expectations is huge. I mean, we're data people, so we always feel like there needs to be some type of KPI. And I feel like this is even in marriage, you know, there needs to be some type of, hey, this is what I expect. This is how we can meet these standards together. And like, here's the goals. So let's meet those together. And so it's, it's huge. And I think there's honesty, but I also feel like there's a way to say it kindly, but also firmly, you know, it's just 100%. Straightforward. Like, just be honest. I'm much more of like I always say this to a harsh no to me is much better than a soft maybe that's not realistic. You know, like if it's a partnership or anything of that nature, it's like, just tell me no, it's okay. You know, we'll move on. But
no is the second best answer for sure. And I think that, I mean, there's ways to be very clear without being very direct, because some people just don't, you know, I love the whole concept of the DISC profile or the Colby analysis, or whatever, the Enneagram, whichever one you want to use. But I think that there's so much we have to learn about the people that we work with. And what we're always telling folks is, you know, treat others the way you want to be treated is what we grew up learning. And now as adults, we have to learn, treat others the way they want to be treated. So if you have those insights about your family or your team, there's lots of ways to give them the clarity that they are all seeking without maybe being as direct as, you know, most of my business owners are high D personality. And you are too. I know that. So there's ways to deliver that kind of feedback and clarity without, you know, coming across as just like wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, to the point.
And I think too, for us, that RD, it's hard also because we expect everyone to think like us and be quick movers. And that's something we really learned. We did the DISC assessment. Sometimes we need to slow down. And it was cool. It was like nobody on our team is similar to me. So it was really me reframing, hey, like, not everybody understands things similarly. So it's like, let's all work together to kind of move that forward. So I love it. So and you work with offices kind of nationwide and help them improve planning, communications, efficiencies, team dynamic. What are some common like bottlenecks that you see, and how do you kind of help them solve that? Is it different? I'm sure it's different every office, but are there some main kind of commonalities?
There are definitely some commonalities, and I think they tend to joke about it, like, "Oh, you've seen this before." Yes, before.
So you're not special.
To me, it comes down, you know, you hit those bottlenecks when you're in a period of growth, typically, right? You hit up and you hit a ceiling, and you got to pivot, and you got to make some adjustments and some changes, and that is never going to stop if you are running a successful business that is also in growth mode. And if you want a business that's just kind of sedentary, which is fine for a lot of people, if it's the, you know, set it and forget it. But anytime that you're kind of going through that evolution, you're hitting those ceilings. And when you have dynamite players, whether it's yourself as the financial advisor, the owner, or whether you have kind of, I call them your ride or die, right? The person who is next to you in the thick of things, up in midnight, working through reports alongside you. When you have those team players, that type of environment that you fostered, which is amazing, you tend to find people who hold on to all the things, right? And anyone in the environment is susceptible to become that bottleneck. And what you really have to be able to help them understand is when you let go of things, you're actually going to help the business more. right?
Yeah.
Whether that's you or whether that's anyone else on your team. And you doing everything is not going to be as good as one or two people really owning it and doing really, really well. So being able to do that, and then also setting the expectations from a cultural standpoint that people in your organization are safe.
Yes.
Because anytime there's a handoff, you know, there's the risk that somebody is going to screw it up, and that's normal and it happens. So you have to be able to set the environment up so that people aren't afraid to hand
take
things
on
off or to fill or to do things differently within, you know, some parameters. And
sure. And it's empowering. I think a lot of what I'm hearing you say is it's empowering other people. It's empowering them to let them do it. Do you feel like, would it be a fair statement to say a lot of advisors have issues delegating because it's like they just want to have that control because they think, you know, I can do it. And I think that's human nature, right? I can do it just, you know, the best, and that's how it is. You feel like from an advisor standpoint, it's hard to delegate?
I think it's really hard for them to delegate for a variety of reasons. The most being, you know, our advisors come into the industry and they are like in it to win it, nose to the grindstone, and they think and sleep and breathe this industry. And that's how they built their business. That's how they fed their families. So no shame to that in any way, shape, or form. They have grit, which is, you know, a skill that can't necessarily, it's not a direct like transfer skill, like you, because the businesses these people are now trying to hand off to different generations or different leadership teams or whatever, they look different than they did 20 years ago or 5 years ago. The business environment is different. And so grit for me is going to look very different than grit for an advisor who's been in the industry for 40 years. So I think that's a big component of it. And also they've been by themselves, and for them it's faster to just do everything rather than like add in these like layers of, for all intents and purposes, like bureaucracy in your business.
And processes and teaching,
as opposed to like meandering around, which you have to do if you want to empower a team and you want your team to help you grow faster than you're currently doing. But there's that like waiting period in there.
There's kind of almost that, that just sector. I always feel like it's, you know, that sector of really having to hone in and grind and figure out your processes, which I feel like sometimes is a curse word for offices. It's like, okay, let's actually hone in on this. Like you do need to write it down. You do need to teach. And it's awkward and it's it's hard to wait. So I totally get that. So,
well, and I think that speaks to hiring too, right? Your S's and your C's on the disc, they're great process people. And when we go into an organization and everything feels like a 5-alarm fire all the time, it's because the advisor has hired a bunch of themselves. Right?
We don't need a lot of D's in the office.
Or not.
He knows. I love my S and C people. They keep me grounded. There are a lot of our team is S and C, and it's awesome. And that's helpful, you know, but it's also, again, it goes back to knowing your team, knowing the players that you're getting on,
and taking the time to invest in them and invest in that relationship, you know, like best practices. I know you've spoken with Allie from Lauren Merkel's office.
She's awesome.
She's the queen of it, but you know, the best practices of investing that time, it's probably there are occasions where it will feel like the slowest hour of your entire week sitting with a team member, but I can promise you that is paying dividends in terms of the trust that they have and the security they have with their role and your ability to read them and say, hey, you know, like you're killing it. Everything's hunky-dory and everything's fantastic. And then all of a sudden there's a nosedive and you can see that now and you can say, hey, well, what's going on? How can
we get there?
What you're doing?
Yeah. I think it's really cool. This is something Erica really thrives at, is she is deeply like interested in people in our team. And I think that's huge for any advisor. Like you have to, or, you know, C-suite person, you have to be invested in your team because that is the engine in your firm. That's really going to keep you going. That is clearly going to be the way to go. So, but I agree. Sometimes, and I am such a people person and I love people. So when we have our one-on-one meetings, it's like, this is my favorite time, but it's also when you have 90 other things in the background, you're like, I want to be so present with you. So it's really taking the time to focus on that. So, but another thing you do is you utilize a lot of technology within financial offices. What are some of the most underutilized tech tools that you see, or something that maybe financial advisors listening could start to implement today in their offices and practices?
Yeah, for most of like my medium-sized firms, project management is not a thing for them at all. And so figuring out a project management tool that works for you, I think is going to help you not only to manage like your quarterly and annual goals that you have for your team, but how do you hold people accountable to the things that we talk about in team meetings? How do we keep a pulse on, where people are at from an emotional standpoint on inside of your business? And I think there's lots of different tools you can leverage, but we all have these CRMs, not all, but most of us have these CRMs that can monitor everything that's going on inside this from
Sometimes
a data standpoint or like a client standpoint. But there's not a lot inside most of the industry CRMs that help you project manage things that are going to take you more than a day to accomplish.
Do you recommend what are some common ones that you see? Like EOS obviously is a great one that we love, but is there other ones that
I have a lot of not a lot, but I have a handful of advisors using Asana or Basecamp. One that we utilize here within my company that I really have taken a liking to is called Monday.com. So Monday.com, like you can get the that'd be great. I love Monday. It's so user friendly and their support team is dynamite. So
that's awesome. That's huge. Having a good support team is massive. It's massive. So, and I think that too kind of leads us to another question, like within the team development side, because I always look at, the support staff is again, the engine of it, but you're really involved in the team development and kind of training of those teams and advisors. What are some of the key traits that you see in high performing advisory teams? If someone's going to go hire or kind of look for new people, what are some of the key traits you recommend that they look for?
When we're looking at, key traits of team members, I want to look for, you want to have a balance, of course, across your office, depending on the range. But I think one of the things you really want to do first is say, hey, what's the position and what kind of personality is it meant for? Because then I think you can tell whether you need somebody who's going to be a fast implementer or somebody who's going to mosey down the path a little bit and collect all of the data. So I do think that changes a little bit from position to position. When I look for leadership team members, I am always asking the question, what is your impact on this organization going to be in 3 years and how can I support that?
I love it.
Because what we know about the hiring industry, and this may have changed a little bit, but within the last year or so, average retention was somewhere between 3 and 4 years for team members. And obviously, if you're building, a small business, that legacy and the historical knowledge that your team members come and stay with is critical for your scalability. So being able to help your A+ leadership style team members to say, hey, this is where we want to be in 3 years. Here's how you can help. Where do you want to be in 3 years? And always kind of keep that running 3-year time period ahead of them so that you can encourage them, whether they're developing their goals from a career standpoint or whether they have goals for the organization that tie into what the vision is for the firm. So making sure that you're continually tapping into that so that it's there's always something to stretch to and to look forward to.
That's really helpful. We're even in the process of hiring 2 new people for our firm. And I'm like, man, that's so good to know. Hey, is this just kind of a stop on the way? And if that is, totally fine. Let's address that and figure it out. What do you need from me and how can I assist you in this growth? And we can, help each other. So we also say hire for the soul, not for the role. So a lot of times it's are you going to be a good fit for our culture? I think we're very heavily cautious about our culture. And I think the second you do let a bad apple in, it really wrecks the team. It really hurts the team. And we have seen that, with firms that we help. And it's man, what happened over the last year? And it's okay, I know exactly what happened or who happened. So that's a big thing. So,
but I also think on that side, Molly, you definitely want a cultural fit. So having that really pinned down is important. But I also think if you have the expectations for the role and where that fits in the organization, that has to be very clearly defined too. Again, clear is kind, because so many advisors that are helpers and people, and they want to support anyone around them. And they candidly, they hire a bunch of strays, right? They hire people because they love them, but then there's nowhere to put them. And that person ends up feeling that lack of impact or that kind of lack of direction, and they end up getting frustrated. And so then
you're really not helping them.
Correct.
Really
and I think in family businesses, especially, right?
I was going to say family because it's your cousin, and you don't want to not.
Your family business does not have to reflect your family tree.
Yes,
there are
I
different
agree.
ways to
I
serve
love
your
that.
family members than
Yep.
putting them into business and giving them a spot where they may or may not thrive.
Yes. And if they can thrive, awesome. I've seen it done so well,
Correct.
and I've seen it done it so terribly. So
Mhm.
I always joke, I'm one of 6, and I look at my siblings and I'm like, I could literally never work with you guys. But they also like, we would never work with you. And I'm like, that's amazing. I'm so glad we're on the same team. So when they hear this, they're going to be like, yeah, that's so true. So, but it's all good. So, but you do a lot of like contributions also to the education side of offices. You write for AE Insider, you host monthly trainings. What are some of like the hot topics that advisors are asking about right now? Maybe it's AI or what are kind of some things that people are asking?
AI is the big one. Right? We just launched an internal AI platform.
Yes, I saw that. It's so cool. It's so cool.
And I think, when we first, even myself, like when AI first kind of came into the scene, I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to use it. It's cheating.
Yes.
Right?
I thought the same thing. Maybe that's like the type A style of people we are. We're like, we want to do it right and well.
Yeah.
But I agree. And then when you started, what did you feel once you started?
Yeah. So once I started, I listened to Cody Foster's podcast.
Yes, love Business for the
where
Right.
He was talking to the AI guy, and he said, use it like a strategic thought partner. And so now I like literally start all of my conversations with, hello, how's it going today? Like, here's what I'm hoping to accomplish. And I like have a conversation with it, which is super dumb. But
I asked our team members
asking questions and you're like, this is what I want out of it. This is absolutely what I don't want out of it. Can you help me? Or throwing, there's been a couple of presentations I've done that just didn't flow right. Like there was just something in there and I couldn't wrap my brain around it. So I throw them in there and be like, hey, can you help me make this more cohesive? Is there an illustration that you can provide here that might help tie together this thought and this thought a little bit better? Because I know where I want to be. Sometimes I get bogged down with all the little steps in between.
Yeah. Which AI program are you using for presentations? I haven't found one yet that I love, and maybe other advisors as well.
Well, I've not tried any of the ones that'll like build your slide deck for you.
No, but yeah.
But I mean, I've used ChatGPT. My compliance company's listening to this, I'm sure. So I log in with all my personal information, so it's fine. I use Claude. I don't know, but I only get like the free platforms. I don't do anything fancy with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think it's such the buzzword. It's such the buzzword right now. And even like we've learned also, like if you are not progressing with the times, you are going to be left behind. You're going to get left behind. So even like within what we're doing now is building out more of like a resource library with an AI platform. So people can come in and say, hey, what was the average case size for the industry last year? What was that? What was it 2 years ago? And they can just talk to it and it spits out all the answers because we've done all the studies. So it's like, man, this is a really cool tool that could really help a lot of people. It's just a matter of utilizing it properly and not taking it to the extreme. But I'm also with you. I feel
like making sure you're not putting like confidential client information or
1,000%.
all that stuff out before I test anything. But like internally, like they just said, start using the chat platform instead of Google. Like start there first.
Yes.
Like, that's a really helpful.
That's interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's super cool, but I'm with you. I always feel so dumb because I have to feel like I have to be polite to it. And I'm like, and my team just laughs. They're like,
hi, have a great day.
Yeah. I'm like, I hope you're doing well. I'm rooting for you. Like it's just who I am. And my team's like
exclamation point, smiley face. Cause
I'm lame, Molly. Yes. I'm like, well, I'm lame, so I'm okay with it. So it's fine.
Yeah. Well, you were the same here. So it's fine.
Yeah. I love that. That's why we get along so well. So it's kind of on the topic of AI also. I just feel like the financial industry itself is really shifting. It's changing a lot. I've even seen it, especially this year. Last year was just such a huge year for so many advisors. And now this year has been a really kind of a struggle with everything happening. And what are some shifts or trends do you think are going to have the biggest impact on this industry in the next 5 years or so? Maybe even 3 years.
I mean, obviously like the political environment, whichever side you lean on, it makes no difference. But the political environment is going to go up and down a lot over the next several years. So I think that's just something, the more you can stay ahead of it and ask the questions and get the questions that your clients and your prospects are asking, not necessarily the questions you have, because they're different or they're the same, but they're worded very differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so making sure that you're asking them what they're worried about and using their language back to them, I think is important. And it'll help you create extra content, whether for your digital, footprint, which is also going to be more and more critical. So I'm not necessarily loving the fact that most of our business owners are going to have to be on TikTok in like 5 years, but that's probably a reality, right?
Honestly, I know I'm gonna have to go get one, and it's been my only like millennial side is like I just can't do the TikTok. I just can't. But it's shaping the industry. It's really digital media is gonna you have to stay ahead. You have to do it. Like it's just we've seen so much of it. So and the nice thing is too, there's a lot of great companies and platforms that do that. You know what I mean? They really do. So it's like if you don't know it, hire it. So just go out there and get it done. So
100%.
Yeah, making all the stupid trend videos, and it's like, what? I can hear the music in my head already. It's annoying. So.
But I also think, like you're gonna, even if you hire it out, like there's so much opportunity for like personalization in your content and your responses and the videos you do and whatever that is, that I think don't lose sight of that. Like as the more we move into digital and AI and, like as a human public, we're becoming much more independent than we are reliant upon one another. And I think it's important to not lose that personal touch in any way that you can find it. So
I think even more and more people are going to crave genuineness. I think that is going to be the one key that is going to stick out. If you're the most genuine in the room, I think you'll get the business. Truly, I think people are tired of, and I think it's true. I always say too, it's like, man, even if you're not perfect, as long as you're honest and true to who you are, I can get behind that in a second versus kind of this fake content. So it's a lot. So
Bo Eason, I was on a call this morning and we were talking about Bo Eason, and what he says is vulnerability is the new credibility.
Oh my gosh, I need to write that down. That's amazing.
So don't like ever hesitate to like be your true authentic self. Like I think my first few years in the industry, I was real buttoned up in like a black suit and black shoes and a white shirt. I feel like I was a band, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
which is not you. I'm
wearing a pink velvet blazer, right? Like I have pink curtains in my house full of boys.
You have to find your thing. I'm about to read a monster with pink, because when it's Boy Nation, it's like I just need one thing. Okay, boys, that's it.
Yeah. So figure out who you are as a person and then just lean into it. Like I would recommend that to anybody, but especially I think as a business owner, and especially as somebody who, relies on human relationship for their business, like you have to be yourself. Own it.
All of it. The good, bad, messy. I think that's something that advisors really do well. They are very good. They genuinely want to help people, and they genuinely want to help their teams. And I do find like, I feel so lucky every day that we get to work in this industry, because I'm like, with and for amazing people, whether it's leaders. I mean, I know Dave and Cody are awesome. It's just anyone that you can work for that's like that style person is really incredible. So what are some things like today, like let's say a new firm is listening to this, because I think a lot of times new firms get a little bit overwhelmed. What's something today that they can really focus on from an educational side or standpoint that they can start to implement in their practice? Like, is there any kind of big things that you recommend advisors do in their practice, whether it's maybe a DISC assessment or if it's some type of training course, anything kind of of that nature?
I mean, I do think that the teams I know that are very successful are the ones that have done a DISC or a Colby or a something, and then they lean into it as a firm. So I think that's a relatively easy one to accomplish logistically. Right. True. But living it and leaning into it is a completely different story. So, for a lot of my teams, like it becomes as easy, whether it's a, DISC profile implementation or whether it's, like learning more about your team or project management, adding a line item to your Monday morning meeting. Right.
I love it. Yeah.
And just making sure that it's there, holding people somewhat to the agenda to say, hey, we're not going to skip over this new initiative. We're not going to ignore the training everybody just did because we just did it. And so we're going to put it in there and we're going to talk about it.
I think that's something we learned also. We all read this book. It was great. It was, the seats on the bus, and it was awesome. And then we didn't talk about it. So it's like, we were like, that was great. So and it was a huge learning thing. I think it was all my fault, because I was just like, cool, we all read it. We all got the things. We're good. And it was like,
your D personality.
Check. Yes, exactly. Blame it on my D personality. It's like, check the box and move on. But it was like, we didn't implement it as a team. So that was something we kind of came back to the drawing board and said, okay, if we're going to do trainings, we're going to do this. Let's actually do it correctly. And I think that's huge. It's huge.
Well, and if you're implementing, some cultural standards, right?
Yes.
Or the mission values of the firm, right? Like you can't just say it once.
Yep.
You got it.
Yeah.
I mean, my advisors are like, well, you have to tell me 100 times. Well, your team is the same, right?
Same.
Because
Yes.
50% of everything you talk about is out the door before that interaction is
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
So you have to
It's
remember
so true.
that, build a structure around it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Be who you are, say what you mean, and just implement it well and keep going. So, last question we always end this, our summit journey is, where are you trucking this year? Anything fun personally you're trying to accomplish? Professionally, where are you trucking?
Yeah. So professionally, my role at the company is changing a little bit. So I'm just going to dive into it and kind of really own that for, however long it takes. So I'm excited about some of the new transitions there. Personally, my word of the year was commitment. And
I love it.
So this year I'm just really laser focused on my commitment to my kids, my husband, the relationships in our lives, making sure that we are like really leaning into those and almost increasing our vulnerability there a little bit. So that's my word this year. Also, I'm trying to kick the Diet Coke,
it's not drugs. So I'm always like, I want to help you and support you if that's something you're really trying, but sometimes we need a little thing. Okay.
Correct. That's really all I got. It's all I got left at this point. So
let me live my life, people. Right. So that's awesome. But Christina, thank you so much. I think you are really providing a lot of value and education for advisors, and we just appreciate you taking the time and coming on.
I'm so glad to have been here. I was honored when you guys asked. So thank you.
Always. Nope. Really appreciate you. So we'll chat soon.
Okay. Bye.